In the recent Bassmaster Elite Series event on Lake Tenkiller in Oklahoma, pros took advantage of runoff areas to catch a pile of bass. And actually, the top 10 was dominated by shallow water anglers that beat the brakes off of the forward-facing sonar scopers by targeting these runoff areas. So in this video, I want to explain how you can find productive runoff areas that have the potential to hold a large population of bass after it rains on your fishery. Let's get into it. So first up, what is a runoff area? Basically, it's any place where rainwater starts to dump into your fishery. Some of these runoff areas can be very obvious, like the back of a major creek, and others are very subtle, like a small pocket or cove off the main lake or a creek. Not all of these runoff areas are going to hold bass, so there can be thousands on your lake after it rains, so you have to determine which ones have the highest potential to hold bass. And I found 3 factors to help me narrow down which runoff areas I should be targeting. The first factor I pay attention to is the amount of water coming into a runoff area. Again, there can be thousands of runoff areas on your fishery after it rains, but only a few have enough water going through them to actually attract the bait fish and then the bass. And you can actually find out which creeks and pockets and coves have runoff areas by looking at mapping. On my Lowrance units, I run CMAP mapping, and if you take a look at the back of some of the major creeks on CMAP, you'll oftentimes see these small blue creek channel lines. These are actually feeder creeks that dump into the lake, and any place where one of these thin blue lines intersects the shoreline, you're going to have a runoff area. This data comes from topographical studies and is publicly available, and it's added into these maps, and it basically shows you the areas that are going to get the most runoff. If you notice, not every single pocket or creek is going to have one of these blue creek channel lines feeding it. Only the few that have that line have a chance to have significant runoff. Now, just because we can identify these runoff areas with these lines, it doesn't mean that all of them are created equally. For example, the lines that feed major creeks are going to have more water coming into them compared to the smaller pockets and coves that are connected to that main creek. At the same time, if you have a lot of these runoff lines in the same small area in the back of a creek, all of that runoff is going to collect together, and you're going to have a ton of sediment and debris and things like that getting in the water. And sometimes this can blow out an area. And that leads me to the second thing I'm looking for in these runoff areas. The second factor I'm looking for in these runoff areas is good water visibility. At times, you can get so much rain that you'll get too much water going through a runoff area. This will muddy up the water and bring a lot of debris that makes the area almost unfishable. Overall, I like to find runoff areas with more than 6 inches of water visibility. If there's less than 6 inches of visibility to the point where you basically put your bait in the water and it disappears immediately, I find that I don't have that much success in these areas. This happens pretty often when you're in the back of a major creek with a lot of runoffs in a small zone. So much water is getting in there and just so much stuff is mixing up that, again, it just kind of becomes unfishable for a bit. But a lot of times you can actually let these areas settle for 2 to 3 days. The bait fish will move in and the bass become catchable, again, 2 to 3 days after all of that new water comes in. The water will actually start to clear up a little bit, get in that like 6 inches or more visibility range, and you can have a blast in these areas. Now, if you're on the lake when there's a lot of active runoff, whether from rain that's happening during your fishing day or maybe from the day or two before, what I like to do is avoid the backs of major creeks where there's a lot of runoff areas together, and instead try to find an isolated runoff area in a smaller creek, a lot of times closer to the main lake. These areas are going to be a little bit more stable in terms of water visibility, and they'll have less debris floating in them, making it easier to fish those areas. It is better to find runoff areas that stain up the water slightly. If the water on the main lake or the main part of the creek is, let's say, 3 foot of visibility, it's great if you can find a runoff that drops that visibility from like 3 feet down to 2 feet. A lot of times this means there's extra sediment in the water and extra nutrients that's going to attract the bait fish and the bass. But at the same time, you want to make sure there's enough water in these more isolated runoff areas to actually attract bass. On days when there's not as much rain, it's actually better to go to the bigger creeks because they'll oftentimes won't be blown out. There's just not enough water coming in. But when there's a ton of water coming in, again, avoid the creeks and stay more towards the main lake or the main part of the creek with more isolated runoff zones. The third factor I'm looking for in these runoff areas is newly flooded cover. Most of the time when you have runoff, you're going to have the water rising up at least a little bit. Sometimes it may rise 3 inches and sometimes 3 feet. Overall though, if you can find newly flooded cover in these runoff areas, you're going to have a lot more baitfish pushing in because the trees and grass and things that were above the water earlier are going to have a lot of microorganisms and insects and things like that that the baitfish like to feed on, and the bass are soon going to follow to feed on those shad. To give myself the best chance of finding newly flooded cover in these runoff areas, I like to target runoff areas in very flat creeks. The flatter the creek, the easier it is for that water to rise up and flood cover. If you're in the back of a very steep pocket and the water rises 6 inches, you're not going to get very much newly flooded cover. But if you're in a very flat, shallow pocket, and the back of the pocket's, let's say, 1 to 2 foot deep, you're going to have a lot better chance of having some flooded bushes, some flooded grass, and again, that's what's going to attract the baitfish and the bass. So if you can, try to target the flatter runoff areas in the back of flat pockets as opposed to the very steep pockets. Now, this doesn't mean you should completely ignore the steeper pockets. There are times when the fish will pull into those areas, especially if there's continuous rain or sustained runoff. At that point, it'll give the baitfish enough time to find that runoff area and push in there. But if it only rains for, let's say, a day or two and the lake just rises up a little bit, finding those flatter areas is going to be a lot more effective overall than the steeper pockets. Now that I've explained the 3 factors I'm looking for in a good runoff area, let's head out to Grand Lake in Oklahoma and put them into practice. I'm here at the end of May, and there's been a ton of rain in Oklahoma this year, so there's a lot of good runoff areas to choose from. Because there's been so much rain, a lot of the major creeks are blown out, so I decided to start in a smaller creek off the main lake with a couple of runoff areas in the back. And to make things interesting, I set a catch 15 challenge for myself where I wanted to catch 5 bass for 15 pounds with no practice, no info, and no forward-facing sonar on this trip. Let's see how it went. Got him. There we go. Good one. Got one back in this little runoff area on the buzzbait finally. That's a good one too. That's what I'm talking about. Solid way to start the day, guys. I knew this runoff area had some potential. Not a great big one, but that is a beautiful fish to start the day. It's going to get us on track for 15 pounds. Let's get a weight on them real quick. There we go, guys. 2 pounds, 10 ounces. 2.5 pounder to get the day started. Beautiful fish right there. There we go, guys. Great way to get the day started. Let's try to get another one. Got that first fish here on the black war eagle buzzbait, 3/8 ounce with a black horny toad on the back. And this area here is basically just a little runoff area. The lake is rising pretty fast right now. We've had a lot of rain, and I thought that if I get in the back of one of these runoff areas, I might be able to find some fish that are actively feeding up shallow. This actual spot is kind of unique because it's a shorter pocket than most here on Grand. And I like to fish these shorter pockets when possible because I don't have to cover as much water. I also wanted to find a really flat pocket that had a runoff area showing on the mapping. So if we take a look at the mapping, you can see there's actually a little creek line on my C-map that shows that there's a creek feeding this. So I knew there was going to be some runoff. And basically, I fished one full half of this pocket, got a couple smaller bites on a frog in the shallow bushes, but didn't connect. Then went to pick up this buzzbait on this kind of sparser side of the creek where there's a lot less cover, and that fish actually bit pretty far off the bank. We are in relatively shallow water. It's only a few feet deep where I'm at right now. So this seems like this could be a pretty decent pattern to run, especially with the cloud cover we have this morning. And I kind of want to try to capitalize on this and 1, just fish out the rest of this little runoff area, and 2, maybe try to run a few more to see if we can get a couple more bites doing this before this morning bite kind of dies down. After catching my first keeper, I made my way over to another runoff area close by. Oh, golly, right here. Come on, fish. Come back and get it. Got him right here next to the boat. Oh my gosh, good one too. That was wild. That fish, I was hung up on the rocks over here, and then he missed my buzzbait. He came back and he choked that jig. Just another runoff area here, guys. Got him on that Picasso 3/4 ounce flipping jig, literally right next to the boat. That is wild. These runoff areas have them right now, guys. It's a beautiful fish. Let's get a weight on him. Here we go, 3 pounds, 1 ounce, another solid fish. 3 pounders are what we need right now, guys. That is awesome. Beautiful fish. Let's get back down there. Well, there we go, guys. Got that fish on a 3/4 ounce hog snatcher Picasso flipping jig with a Yamamoto Flopping Hog Jr. as a trailer. Just using it as a follow-up bait to that buzzbait after a fish missed it. And we actually just made a move to another little water inflow area that I found last night on Google Earth. I was looking around and I noticed there's a pond back in the back of this pocket, and this pond has a dam and like a little water overflow system. And there's not any water going over the top of this thing right now, but with all the rain we've had the last 2 days and the lake coming up 3 feet, I'm sure that there was water pouring over this over the last couple days. And so I thought this would be a great area for the shad and the bass to kind of accumulate. And as I'm working through here with this buzzbait, I've noticed there's a ton of shallow bank grass that is covered up in the water because this pocket is, again, very flat. I've been looking for these flatter pockets on the mapping because when you do get those flat pockets, you'll get this flooded vegetation, and that is what really attracts the bass, I find, in these high water conditions, especially on Grand when that lake gets above like 3 feet high and the water's rising. So this buzzbait is kind of calling those fish out. We're getting some sun and stuff now, so I don't know if I need to switch maybe to a swim jig or something else here in a minute, but we're gonna keep throwing this buzzbait through this inflow area and see if we can get a few more bites because they are definitely back up in these things. Got him. Uh-oh. Get up over that. Got that fish kind of up over the top of under a dock, over a log. There we go, another good keeper here on that buzzbait. Just a small male bass, but it's another fish to add to our total on that buzzbait. They're eating that buzzbait really good too. 1 pound 9 ouncer, not a big one, but it's adding to our limit, just a little 14-inch keeper. And I'll put all the fish on the scale I can, because if I just catch like a 5 pounder or something, you never know, that 1 pounder might make a difference. But another nice keeper there on the buzzbait. We definitely have got a deal going now, guys. I don't know how long it's going to last with the sun kind of coming up. These fish are going to be still up here, and I don't know how big these fish are. It seems like there's a lot of male bass still up here, so we're gonna have to keep running around, see if we can get a few more better quality bites, but this pattern's working. Okay, so this is pretty interesting, guys. I'm making my way through all these dock cables and stuff, trying to fish my way out of this creek because there's a lot of flooded grass down this bank, and that water inflows at the back of this creek. So I thought maybe there'd be fish setting up further out in front of the creek, but it doesn't seem like I'm getting any bites or any activity really as we make our way further out. So it seems like the majority of the fish are just in the back thirds of the creeks, which is really good because I can basically eliminate a lot of this water. Oh, I say that, one just hit it right there, which is a really little guy. Just throwing a little swim jig here. Wasn't a big one, but I just haven't really seen that much activity, gotten really any good bites as I'm making my way through here, but I guess we'll just fish our way out. I like to fish my way through a lot of this stuff just in case, because maybe they are back through these kind of first third of these creeks and I can basically expand my water a little bit more, but right now that doesn't seem to be the case. Got him. There we go. Another one here in one of these runoff areas. Not a big one, just another little keeper here. It's kind of what I'm hoping to pick up in this last little area. Actually, I've made it to my last easy to access runoff area. The rest of them are going to be further back in the creek, so I'm kind of glad I was able to catch at least one more. The sun's getting pretty bright. That's not a big fish either, but at least it's a keeper, and I wanted to just try to see if I can get like 4 to 5 fish in the boat here before I start trying something different to maximize this pattern. It's just a 1 pound 4 ouncer. Really small fish, just a little male. Not too bad, but I mean, we have 8 pounds 8 ounces for 4 fish. This pattern is not, I don't think, going to carry us all the way to our 15-pound goal. And there's a lot of other ways to catch fish out here right now other than these runoff areas. So I don't need to get caught up on this pattern too much. And especially if I run out of easy to fish runoff areas. Most of the ones I've been fishing require a very short idle, and they're very easy to access off the main lake. The rest of them, like I mentioned earlier, are going to be really far back in the back of creeks requiring a long idle in and out, and it's just gonna waste a lot of time. With only 8 hours of fish, I don't really wanna waste that much time just going in and out of creeks. So I'm gonna fish my way out of here, see if I can get one more keeper doing this, and then we're probably gonna change it up and try something different. And some of you may be wondering why I'm throwing this buzzbait over other baits, especially with these bluebird sky conditions right now. And I could be throwing a swim jig or a chatterbait, something subsurface, even flipping some of these bushes. But I find that when I'm in these really flat pockets, a buzzbait is my best way to generate a better quality bite. And honestly, a lot of my bites are coming off the bank right now because my boat is sitting in like 2.5, 3 foot of water, and there's cover all the way from the bank to my boat because this lake has risen so much. And this buzzbait is a great way to call fish up that are sitting in some of this flooded cover just off the bank. I can also throw it right up against the bank into all these bushes. I have braided lines so I can rip them out of there. And again, I just feel like I can get a really good quality bite, but more than anything, I can just cover a lot of water quickly in these areas. And as I'm trying to work my way through here, I don't want to spend too much time per area because I don't feel like there's that many fish setting up right now in these pockets. There's just a handful that are active. If I felt like there were a lot more fish, I might slow down and pitch and flip and things like that. But honestly, I feel like this is my best bet, at least for the first couple hours here. Just put some keepers in the boat and get some momentum going. But we're getting to the end of this pocket here, and honestly, I'm not really feeling it at this point. I kind of feel like I need to start transitioning further offshore and kind of give up on the shallow bite, at least for now. Maybe I will find another area that sets up really well and we'll keep fishing shallow, but at least for now, let's just kind of a couple more casts, then start heading offshore.
As I'd mentioned earlier, I'd already fished through all of the easy to access runoff areas on this part of the lake. It would take a long idle to get back into any other runoff area. So before committing to that, I wanted to check out some main lake structure spots to see if some bass had pulled offshore. I didn't actually want to fish that deep with the water being high, and instead wanted to find some shallower offshore rocky spots the bass were just pulling out to as this water temperature is warming up.
Here's this rock right here, and actually looks like there's potentially some bait out here. We'll see though, I couldn't really tell just from that. I don't want to get too close on this because I know this drops off. Oh, there's some fish right there. You can see them right there. Right there. I'm going to mark that really fast with a fish icon. There are some fish right there. That rock extends out. Do we see any bait around here? That's the question. We saw some fish. I'll go back over there and kind of point them out again. There's a really nice rocky shelf right here, and it looks sweet. I'm gonna have to spin back around this really quick. I don't want to get too close to it in case I do want to fish this because I'll have to wait and let it regroup up. I'm just hoping to kind of see a few shad in the area, to be honest. But even without the shad, I mean, there's got to be some fish up on this thing. It looks so good. Let's graph over this. Look at all that right there. There's just some really nice rock. Is that a fish? There's a fish right there. You can see on the screen. There's some fish over here. You can see them. These are bigger non-bass species right here. These are all like really big lines and dots, but there's a pretty good chance that some of those are actually bass too. I'm gonna mark this right here. This looks super good. I don't know exactly what we're dealing with in terms of if there's a bunch of bass here or not. If I go back to my full side scan view, I'll show you that area that I thought had bass. Basically in here, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's like some little dots that are kind of just, they seem to be kind of separated away from the rock. They don't look like rocks themselves. They're kind of not in a uniform shape. It's kind of hard to tell all the time if they are bass or not. I could be completely mistaken, but I'm gonna get on the other side of this and we're just gonna crank this really quick because this looks really good and this could be a good spot if they're stacked up here. Here we go, good one, be a bass. Oh yeah, big one. Here we go, guys. Finally on the Magnum Squarebill, right on the waypoint where we marked them. Those were bass, thankfully. Nice one right there, offshore. Absolutely love that, guys. Was catching them up shallow, then we came out here offshore and we put one in the boat. We actually got bit like 3 or 4 times on that cast. We're about to freaking crack them if they're down there. I knew those looked like bass. That Magnum Squarebill is so fun, guys. Strike King 8.0, beautiful fish. Let's get a weight on this guy really quick. There we go, guys. 2 pounds, 15 ounces. Another 3-pounder right here. That calls out a 1 pound, 4 ouncer right there. Brings our total up to 11 pounds, 10 ounces. Beautiful fish. Awesome. Let's get that guy back down the lake. Nice one. There we go, guys. Got him on that Strike King 8.0 Magnum Squarebill right on our waypoint, which is awesome. And the reason I like throwing this Magnum Squarebill is because if there are white bass in this area, they just don't bite it. I threw this on the last spot and never connected with a white bass. There were a bunch of fish that slapped at it, and I've actually had a couple slap at it already in the cast when I caught that largemouth. So I don't know if there are a bunch of white bass up there mixed in with some largemouth. I'll make a couple casts with other baits, but that Magnum Squarebill is kind of a way I've found to weed out those white bass because they just don't really like to connect with it compared to the largemouth. And we're starting to kind of put together a deal here where we have rocky spots. We did see some gizzard shad actually as I was kind of setting the boat down and getting ready. I noticed on my 2D there were some gizzard shad out here, and I've seen a couple kick as I'm just reeling my bait in too. So we're in an area with some gizzard shad, nice rocky spot. Exactly what we need. Don't know how many fish are on the spot. It didn't seem like there were that many, but if we can kind of keep running this pattern, we should be in business. So we have 3 hours left to fish, and we have to put 2 more good keepers in the boat. To start off here, I want to check out some community hole ledges right here on the main river channel. With the lake being high, they're pulling a lot of current right now, and so a lot of these ledges that are running up against these steeper creek channels can hold fish. I don't know if these fish have made it out here this far yet, to be honest. It is kind of the end of May, about to turn June, so there isn't any reason why they shouldn't be out here, but we're gonna graph a few of these spots just to see if we can see any fish stacked up here. There are some shallower stretches on this ledge as well as some deeper stretches. Again, this is a pretty big community hole, so these fish get kind of pressured, but even if they are pretty pressured, hopefully we can find a few here and maybe pick them off with some unique baits and things like that. Looks like there are some fish up here though. You can see right here on our down scan 2D right there. We have a couple fish right here, and there's more up here as well. So those are definitely bass right there. There's a couple of other probably non-bass species, but they're right there in 10 foot right there. Those are pretty obvious dots. I want to graph back around this. We have some more stuff kind of deeper out here. Those don't look like bass. The arches are very squiggly, kind of blurry. The arches that we saw and the dots we saw earlier over here were more full. They have more size to them. So those are definitely bass. And again, this is a pretty big community hole, so these fish get kind of beat up on. There was a boat here earlier as I drove by too, so I know that the guys have been fishing this, but hopefully again with some unique baits, maybe a little bit of a different casting angle, something like that, we might be able to trick a few here into biting. And I want to graph around to see if we find another angle on them other than those couple that we saw up there. There's a few more right here. So there's just a few fish kind of just scattered out. Ooh, there's actually a pretty big group right there on that rock right there. There's a rocky spot. They're sitting on the back side of that. It's actually a pretty good group right there. Maybe I should have been checking this main river to start with. This is kind of the trick sometimes, guys. You have to figure out what is the right thing for that day. These are definitely bass, 100% bass right there, based on the size of those arches. Again, I have a lot of videos explaining how to differentiate bass from other species on the fish finder. There's bait right there in 10 foot. That is awesome. I'm gonna pull up the side scan here. I wanna just mark down this whole drop as well with rock, because I'm not using forward facing, so I need to kind of use this to get my lineup right. And there's a lot going on right there. So we got that whole thing marked out. What I want to do is get a casting angle so that I'm casting different from how a lot of other anglers are going to be casting. So a lot of guys will put their boat out here in the channel and they're going to cast up onto that drop. But what I want to do is actually position my boat over here and bring my bait with the current. So the current is going to be pulling from right to left on the screen. So I want to bring my bait over the top of that with the current. And we may have to try a couple of unique baits, maybe try to throw something a little bit different at them. I'm also going to throw that Magnum Squarebill just to see. There's a bunch of activity on this drop though, but I think right where we marked, that's where we need to be. And honestly, there should be enough fish here that if we can get them in the boat, we should be able to finish this challenge, because there are a lot more here than I thought there would be. Got him. There we go. Okay. This does not feel like a big one. Just a little guy out of this group, but we now have the cast at least on that tush with the spunk shad. Just a little guy, but I know there's some bigger fish up there. Nice. Okay, so we got our cast at least. There we go. Another one. Another little guy. Dang. Back-to-back casts though. On the tush with the spunk shad, we got the spot. We got a bait. We just got to get one that's bigger than that to bite it. He absolutely choked that thing though. My goodness. Get back down there, fish. Nice. Man, 2 casts in a row. They're right on the edge of this drop here, and all I'm doing is firing that tush out there, hopping it a couple times, and the last couple casts, they've just absolutely cracked it as soon as the bait landed pretty much. They're just not very big ones, but you may have to weed through them, pick a different bait. I just found the cast. I think I just missed it out to the right a little bit too, but I think I have the cast. It's right on my waypoint that I marked. So that's a good sign that we have a good lineup on it at least. I missed that cast, but we need to see if we can get a better quality fish off this spot. Got him. Oh, another little guy. Tossed it. Okay, we got the cast. Let me see if I can fire up there with this Squarebill. Maybe a bigger one will eat it. Every time I make that cast on that spot with the spunk shad, I at least get one to bite it. There just seems to be a lot of little guys down there, but I saw some bigger ones, so we know there's some better quality fish down there. It's just a matter of getting them to bite. I only managed to catch a few small fish off that last community hole, and I feel like there were bigger fish there. I just couldn't get them to bite, and I didn't want to spend too much time on a spot like that because those fish get pressured and can be really tough to catch, and I've sat on those spots for hours before and just not gotten bites. So I want to check out another community hole here. It's just another point that drops sharp in the channel. The current's going to flow over the top of this with the current we have today, so it should be almost identical to the last spot in setup, and so I feel like there should be a group of fish here as well. And my thought is maybe just running a couple of these community holes that are open, that don't have boats on them, and seeing if I can catch a fish or two off of them, and then maybe trying to look for a few more sneaky spots. But honestly, these community holes can be so hit or miss, and as much pressure as spots are getting with forward-facing sonar and everything nowadays too, it gets harder and harder to catch these fish even when they are there. I can see a few fish actually right in here on the side scan. We'll mark those and regraph over the top of them. But there's bait fish in the area. You can see all of that shad that's out here. All that shad is perfect. We know that there's gonna be some fish staying up in this area with that much shad up there, and I have a really good feeling that there's gonna be some fish pulled up on this point. I feel like I can drag a football jig or something and maybe get a bite or two. And honestly, if I can just pick up one like 2 3/4 to 3 pounder off a spot like this and then go back to trying to find some more sneaky stuff, we could be in business. But we got a couple of fish that just popped up on our 2D sonar down scan. You can see them like right there. Kind of hard to see. You can see them a little bit on the side scan view as well. Nothing crazy. There's just a few fish up there, but let's make a few casts. I mean, it's worth at least trying to cast up there, see if we can get a bite or two, and then move on. Oh my gosh, that was like a 2.5 pounder. Literally chased my bait all the way back to the boat and missed it right on our waypoint right here. What in the world? How did he not get it though? That was a good one too. Oh, I would have taken that one in my limit right there. Okay. Well, we know there's fish here. I mean, we knew there were some fish here, but that's actually a good one right there. He just needs to eat my bait, or I need to find something that'll get him to bite. My goodness, that was crazy. God, there we go. Be a good one. Decent fish. Man, that last one chased it pretty good too. There's some bass right here, guys. They're sitting pretty tight, I feel like, to that channel. There we go, nice one. I couldn't really see them, but I know they're down there. Oh, he broke me off. I almost dumped that fish. with my bait and all. But you got that tush with the spunk shad right there, top of the mouth, not a big one, or he's a decent one, he's just really skinny. But now we got the cast lined up there. Let's get a weight on him. 1 pound 15 ouncer, not a big one, but just a nice fish. I'm actually gonna try to throw a crankbait down there now that I got him wound up for a second, because I don't wanna lose the momentum on this group. I got that cast now. Fire back out there. I'll have to put that tush and the spunk shad back on here in a second, but let's see if they just eat a crankbait, because I got them to bite something. Maybe they'll get aggressive enough to eat this thing. These fish on these community holes get really weird where they won't bite a crankbait, they won't bite a bunch of other stuff. The only thing I got that last group to bite on was that tush and the spunk shad again, because I just know that not very many guys are throwing it, and it just gives me a little bit of a different advantage because I have a bait that no one else is really throwing that much, even though I talk about it all the time on my channel, and it does freaking work. But I just don't know, guys. That fish is not the size we quite need, but the one before that that I missed would have definitely helped the cause. Make one more cast with this crankbait, and I'm gonna have to retie that tush. Got him. There we go. Another one on the tush. They want the tush and not the crankbait for some reason. Had to sit down and retie. These fish are just not that big, unfortunately. I mean, they're better than what I have on the scale so far, I think. Maybe that one's just a tiny cull, but man, they're not that big out here right now. I just don't think the real big ones have made it out here quite yet, but maybe if I just keep weeding through them, we might get lucky. That one doesn't even cull for me. 1 pound 8 ouncer, but we have this school fired up now on this bait. I saw a good one again that came straight to the boat, so we know that there's at least a few more decent fish in this school. I'm gonna throw this bait a few more times, and I might have to switch over to something maybe even a little bit bigger bait. I don't really know. I have a big scrounger down here. Might try that. Something to get these fish to maybe bite that are the little bit bigger fish to bite, as opposed to all these. Oh my gosh, he smashed it though. Oh, my bait's all messed up. Man, they like this tush with the spunk shad, but my goodness, they're not very big.
I wasn't really catching any quality fish off these main lake community hole ledges, so I decided to use the last few hours of my day to actually idle back into one of these runoff areas and see if I could continue my pattern from earlier in the day.
Got him, good one. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Making some adjustments, freaking catching them on a buzzbait in the runoff area. We literally have 30 minutes left in the day, guys. Oh my gosh, that's what we freaking call an audible buzzbait, middle of the afternoon. That is a freaking good one. No wonder they weren't offshore. They were just up shallow here. I should have just kept running runoff areas, guys. Oh my gosh, I had the pattern. I got stubborn trying to catch them offshore. I thought that was the way to do it. Here we go, guys. 3 pounds, 15 ounces. What does that put us to? That is a tank. What do we got? What do we got? Come on. 14, 12. I need one more cull. Are you kidding me? That is a beauty, though. Oh, beautiful fish right there, guys. Let's get back down the lake. Let's get another one. Oh my gosh, on that buzzbait. Oh, that was freaking awesome, guys. On the black war eagle buzzbait, there's no better way to catch them than out of top water, and he absolutely destroyed that thing. As I mentioned earlier, I can throw a bunch of different baits back up in here. I could be throwing a swim jig or flipping or doing anything else, but this buzzbait just allows me to cover water super effectively, and when I get a bite, it is a freaking big one. Now, I'm kind of getting back in here with a bunch of muck, so I may actually pick up my frog that I have tied on here, and that might actually be a better call, but I still want to throw a top water because I just feel like I have a better shot of catching a big one doing that. It allows me to fish through this cover really well. This is a runoff area again, guys. There's actually a bunch of debris in the back of this deal, and that fish came off of a boat dock, and there's all this kind of little, I I don't even know what it is, just debris covering the water, which makes me think that this frog bite could be really good back in here too. There's a lot of shade, there's bait fish everywhere because of that run-in. And oh my gosh, we just need one more bite, guys. One more 3-pounder. We got the challenge complete. Well guys, my 8 hours is up, and unfortunately I'm 4 ounces short of my 15-pound goal. We almost saved the day there at the end with a good audible, which put a 3-pound 15-ouncer in the boat. And honestly, in hindsight, I should have stayed shallow all day. I got some really good bites earlier in the day, and if I had just stuck it out, I feel like I would have been able to catch maybe 15 to 17 pounds, at least catch a couple more 3-pounders. And these runoff areas were definitely the deal today. But honestly, I'm not that upset with my decision because the bite really was slowing down around 10:30 today, and I felt like I had a lot better chance of catching them offshore. Even if I did stay shallow, I may have only got 2 or 3 more quality bites, and so I could have ended up with maybe 15 to 17 pounds, but we'll never know. That offshore bite, though, is something that can be really, really good this time of year, and I have had days where I caught 20 to 25 pounds in just a few minutes on Grand Lake in May, so I don't regret going after those offshore fish. I just was a little bit ahead of them on those main lake schools. I was able to catch a bunch of fish on that core tackle tush with the 5.5-inch Spunk shad. It was a lot of fun, getting a lot of bites. They just weren't the right size. And probably in a couple of weeks, the bigger fish will start kind of getting out of these shallow runoff areas off the bank and start getting out there. And there were a few fish in some of the in-between offshore areas. I did catch that one nice fish on the 8.0 Magnum Squarebill. And I think if I had found a few more areas like that, I also may have been able to get a few more quality fish in the boat. Honestly, I just went too far offshore, more towards that main lake, trying to take advantage of that current, and that was just the wrong call. And it derailed me for probably 3 hours of the day. If I had tried to stay in that kind of mid-range offshore stuff or up shallow here with the buzzbait, I probably had a lot better day, or at least got my 15-pound goal. But either way, we got really, really close. Had a lot of fun catching them on that buzzbait. Really, really fun bite. Didn't catch too many fish on it, but the ones we did catch were pretty good. I also caught a fish on a jig. I don't know where that jig is. Here it is. This Picasso 3/4 ounce jig, just kind of fishing it as a backup or follow-up bait to that buzzbait. So definitely had a fun day. Caught a pile of fish. I love post-spawn bass fishing, and it is really tricky this time of year to figure out where these fish are going to be, especially with fluctuating water levels. Water temperatures are changing, the current is going, so you have to make the best decision you can. And I feel like I tried my best to catch my 15 pounds today and fish at the moment. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This video is a little bit longer than usual and trying to make a little bit of a different format, putting more effort in each video. So let me know if you guys like this format, also the non-forward facing sonar content as well. I like it because I caught fish on a bunch of different baits that I normally wouldn't be throwing if I had forward facing sonar. So it's more enjoyable from a fishing standpoint and hopefully from a content standpoint. So thanks again for checking out this video. We'll see y'all next one.